Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Dano, your host, and this is HOTDROP, a show about everything PlayerUnknown'S Battlegrounds. In this pilot episode, I will first introduce myself, talk a bit about what PlayerUnknown'S Battlegrounds is, and why I chose to cover it in this podcast. I want to talk about the things that are really exciting about this game, and why I think this game will be the next big thing. But first, I wanted to shout out to the boys over at Infection Podcast, which is a survival video game podcast that began about 2 years ago and started covering the game H1Z1. So this was what is known today as H1Z1 Just Survive. This was, if you don't know anything about it, was sort of a play on the DayZ zombie survival games, and it had a lot of promise when it was first released. I don't want to go down the road of talking more about how that game turned out, but I will say that these guys really started my interest in starting a podcast. They were sort of my inspiration for this show. And they've been doing their show for about 125 weeks straight, which is seriously impressive. I hope I can come close to even half of that in terms of consistency. But I just wanted to say that those guys run a great show. You can find them at infectionpodcast.com. They have a great online community that I encourage you to join. They're just a pretty cool bunch of guys that started a show from a game that they thought was interesting and turned out to create a really great gaming community behind it. So, yeah, so I just encourage you to check them out. And like Infection was to H1Z1 at the time, I hope that HOTDROP will become your source for information on everything relating to Battlegrounds. So, on with the show. This first episode will be a bit more structured. In the following episodes, I'll be covering things like patch notes, news from around the web, articles that I found that are interesting, and just general opinions about the game and speculation about what's to come. The developers have been doing an amazing job, especially for this being an early access game. So I think there will, and I hope there will, be a lot of things to talk about in the coming months. But let's start this off with a bit about me. So I've got some YouTube videos queued up here to talk about my history in video gaming. I'm 27, and I've been playing video games since my dad first brought home a 486 back in the early 90s. I was always a PC gamer. I was never allowed to have a console. So everything that I grew up with were DOS games. So this, obviously, is Wolfenstein. This was one of the first games I ever remember playing. Sort of a pioneer of the FPS genre. This was the first FPS game that got a lot of attention because of the violence, because of the subject matter. It sort of started the entire FPS genre. So I have to shout out to Wolfenstein, especially as being one of the first games that I fell in love with, honestly. From there, I played a lot of Duke Nukem 3D. This was a game that I'm sort of surprised my parents let me play because of the extreme adult content here. We've got nudity, we've got violence, we've got body parts blowing up there, we've got swearing. You got the whole gamut of adult themes in this game. But this was one of the games that I also like really enjoyed. I played this to death when I was younger. When I wasn't playing it, I was always sitting next to my dad watching him play it. So it definitely has a special place in my heart. And I can't say the same about any of the remakes, but I think this game was as good as it was because it existed at the time it did. Um, you really had to be an adult in the 90s to really understand the humor and really connect with this game. I also played a lot of Dark Forces, so of course now this is a cutscene. Let me skip ahead just a little bit and you can see some gameplay. Here we go. So this is a game that was built on the Duke Nukem 3D engine. It's the build engine, which all of the games seemed to use at the time. Doom started, I think Doom was the first game that used the build engine, and Duke Nukem was sort of a rip-off of that. This was sort of a rip-off of that as well. But this was just a Star Wars themed first-person shooter, which I was a big fan of at the time. It's a little confusing as far as level design. It's very mazy, so that's one of the reasons why I didn't like it as much. I got bored with it pretty quickly because it was so difficult to navigate around the map. But it definitely is another game that I grew up playing and I grew up watching my brother play along with my friends. Uh, from there, there's another game that's, I think, a total hidden gem that no one ever talks about, which is so strange to me. But this is Blake Stone, Aliens of Gold. This was a sort of the same thing, a game that looks like it was based on the Wolfenstein engine, possibly. Um, but this was a sci-fi themed Wolfenstein essentially, with key cards and money and power-ups and secret areas, very similar to Wolfenstein, but also a total hidden gem. I really enjoyed the hell out of this game. Not too much to say about it other than it was just a really fun game to play, and if you're interested in playing any old DOS games, highly recommend you pick this one up. I'm sure it's free and you can find it wherever. I think DOS games or old good games probably have it. I also enjoyed not just first-person shooters; those were my bread and butter. But I also was a big fan of Age of Empires, classic strategy game, real-time strategy. No introduction here. You don't need to know anything about this game. I'm sure you already know everything there is to know. But this was a game that really kicked off my multiplayer gaming sort of career, if you will. I don't really know what else to say. This was the one game that I started playing against my brother online and just against each other one on one, and it was super super fun because this was one of those games where like, okay, I'm gonna build my city, I'm gonna beef it up, I'm gonna attack, and I'm gonna win. And it was one of those things where you sort of can prove that you're better than someone else, and that's all about what multiplayer gaming is, right? So I realized how much I loved playing against my brother and probably getting my ass handed to me many, many times. But I realized how much fun it was to play against other people on the internet. So the first game that I played online as far as FPS was Counter-Strike. And at the time, this is Counter-Strike 1.5, which was before Steam was even a thing, honestly. I think we're talking about 2002-ish. I remember having to actually download Steam to get 1.6. Um, that's how far back this goes. This game probably is my all-time favorite game. Absolutely love Counter-Strike. The skill ceiling being as high as it is, the guns all being very balanced, um, the gameplay being very consistent. Like, you know what's going to happen. Like, you can learn the maps, you know the timings. There's just a lot of strategy involved here, and that's why I've always really, really loved Counter-Strike. I started playing CS:GO after high school, or I'm sorry, after college. And this is, as you know, the latest version of Counter-Strike. It's Global Offensive, and I've got probably 1,400 hours or so invested in CS:GO, and I'm gonna make a lot of comparisons between CS:GO and Battlegrounds because yeah, they're very different games, but at the same time, there's a lot of similarities, and there's a lot of things that I like about Counter-Strike that I see in Battlegrounds, and I think that's one of the reasons why I keep coming back to Battlegrounds and really enjoying the hell out of it because there's a lot of strategy. There's the gunplay, which is incredible. There's the situational awareness, the positioning. All of these things sort of combine to have a game that's really replayable and one that is very difficult to master. Um, so let's get into Battlegrounds. If you're listening to this, you probably know what it is. You know that it's a first person slash third person game that you parachute into an open map, you scavenge for guns quickly, you fight to be the last one standing. That's what PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is. So if you're wondering why it has such a weird name, PlayerUnknown is actually a person. He's the pioneer of the Battle Royale genre. He's actually the creator of this game mode that was first founded in the Arma series as a mod that he created, and then later in H1Z1 King of the Kill. So if you played those mods, you'll be right at home here as well, since they're all very similar. What Battlegrounds does is sort of combine the best parts of all of those previous games, those previous mods that he worked on, and the result is a tactical, just slow enough paced, just realistic enough feeling first-person shooter without feeling overly realistic to the point of where you have game elements that are needlessly difficult or just annoying to deal with. So you probably know about King of the Kill, and King of the Kill was one of the very first mainstream, if you will, battle royale game modes. Um, I like to compare it to H1Z1, obviously, but I also really like to compare it, like I said, to Counter-Strike. These are very different games, but I want to talk about some of the elements of Counter-Strike that I feel are elements within Battlegrounds 2 that make the game so fun to play. So, one of the things about Counter-Strike is that there's no round timer. One of the things that I like about Battlegrounds is that there's no round timer. There's no instant respawn. Every encounter is very nerve-wracking. So, do you shoot the guy running at you through the open field and give away your position, or do you lay down behind a tree and wait for him to pass? You know, those kind of decisions you're constantly thinking about as you play a round of Battlegrounds. There's a whole bunch of critical thinking involved, which makes for some seriously exciting matches, and also matches that are never the same twice. This is one of the most addictive games that I think I've ever played, and I think there's a bunch of reasons for this. I want to highlight a couple of those reasons here as I pull up some PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds gameplay. One second here. This is King of the Kill. One of the things I want to highlight quick before I go over to Battlegrounds is the difference in feeling between these games. So right here you can see this game kind of looks arcadey, like the UI is very cartoony. You can see this vehicle tumbling down a mountain here, but essentially the game is very easy to pick up and play, and it serves its purpose. It's for a different audience. I think this is a more casual game where you can jump around as you get hit, and you can bounce around, and you can run a lot faster. There's a lot more happening on the screen. There's the ability to craft explosive arrows like this guy just did. There's a lot of different elements of the game that I feel make it a little bit easier, a little bit better for newcomers. Whereas Battlegrounds is a little bit more realistic. So a lot of the same elements are here that are in H1Z1, but I think this game's a lot more fun. It's a lot more slower paced. I think it's a lot more deliberate. It's a little more realistic. You can get punished if you do things like jump as soon as you get hit. As soon as you're taking cover and you panic, you jump around to try to avoid those bullets, you're gonna die. Like there's no way to escape that. Positioning is very important in this game. Knowing where to keep your attention, knowing where to look is extremely important. There's a lot of things that are similar to H1Z1, but I think this game is sort of what H1Z1 should have been, in my opinion. I'm gonna get some heat for that comment, but this really is what H1Z1 should have been. It's developed right by the creator of the Battle Royale genre. It's developed by a team that knows what they're doing. This development team, like I said before, is fantastic. One of my friends had a good quote, and I'm going to see if I can remember it, but they are small enough to care, but smart enough to deliver. And that's the key to Bluehole versus Daybreak. Like, these guys know what they're doing, and they're using an engine that's proven that they don't really have to mess with a whole lot because it's already well established. And I'm saying this as a completely, clueless, just video game player, not at all a developer. But I really think that they understand what they're doing and have a lot of developers that are skilled and that understand how to make a game that is successful, that will be successful. I'm going to get into a whole lot about that stuff in the coming episodes, the things that I think about this development team and the direction that I see them going with. But in this episode, I want to hop back to my script here. I've sort of been going off on tangents a little bit, but what I wanted to mention about this game is some of the reasons that I think this game is so addictive. So the first thing is that there's randomized loot. And this is the same with H1Z1, but nothing is ever the same twice. There's a greater chance of finding better guns at higher risk areas like the military base, and it's cool that you have that option. For example, in H1Z1, when you start the game, you sort of immediately parachute. You're immediately within your parachute and can't decide where you want to land. Whereas Battlegrounds gives the option of where to jump out of the plane. So you can say, okay, do I want this game to be a hot drop, if you will? Come on. You jump right into a military base, you grab the better guns, but you have a lot higher risk in doing that. Or do you play it safe and sort of shoot for the outskirts of the city, go to some smaller houses that have less of a chance of getting good loot, but also are safer at the same time? So you have a lot of decisions to make even as soon as the game starts. Second, there's a fairly even playing field in this game. In fact, I think positioning is more important than sheer skill. One of the best players in the world could be sitting on a hill with a sniper rifle, ghillie suit, silencer, completely kitted out. And a brand new player with no experience whatsoever can easily get the upper hand on him and just walk up to him, shoot him in the back. Like, it's extremely level ground here just because of the nature of the open world. Like, some people might think this is a negative, but I really think it's a positive because it gets new players interested in this game, and everyone has the chance to win a game the first time they start up Battlegrounds. It makes the game fun for everyone, extremely accessible, like I just said, and also there's the element of the skill ceiling, but it sort of evens that out a little bit to make it more fun. Third, there's the guns. This is obviously the bread and butter of this game. They're so satisfying to shoot, very well balanced. The sound design is incredible. If you get a moment, I encourage you to get an AK or an M16, walk out into the field and just shoot it in the game. And you'll hear the bullet echo for like 4 or 5 seconds after you've shot. Like, the sound design is absolutely incredible. I think they did a really good job capturing like the feel and the sound and the impact, the power of the guns in the game. But also the variety, so it keeps people moving around the map. The things like the attachments, like the extended mags, the optics, this makes people continue to move around the map, and it makes it so that, for example, in H1Z1, if you just grab an AR, you're done. All you need is more ammo. You can hunker down right away, find a house to camp in, and you're set for the game. Versus this game, Battlegrounds, you're going to run around, you're going to want to find those 4x, 8x scopes, the silencers, the extended mags, to get anything you can, any small piece of kit that will make you have a one-up on the other players. Like, there's always something to loot for. You could be looting up to the very end of the game, honestly. And the variety of the guns makes for some very interesting decisions you have to make. So you can only carry 2 guns at once. Do you take the shotgun, which I will definitely talk about shotguns in some coming episodes. These, I don't think they're extremely overpowered, but I think they're very realistic and serve a purpose very well in this game. But there's the concept of scope zeroing, which also makes the individual weapons have that much higher of a skill ceiling. I think the weapons are the biggest and most complex aspects of this game, and the weapon design is arguably what makes this game so great, in my opinion. So I'll be talking a lot more about weapons in the coming weeks, but just in general, I think that they've done an excellent job so far, really making them feel powerful, but also very well balanced at the same time. There's also the adrenaline rush of playing this game, and this is that psychological reason why I keep coming back to this game. So I'm no stranger to the adrenaline rush, obviously playing a lot of CS when you're clutching around and everyone's watching you. But this game takes it to the extreme next level. So every encounter puts you on edge. Even at the very beginning of the game, tension is constantly sky high because anyone could be anywhere at any time. So versus Counter-Strike or any other like Unreal Tournament fast-paced shooter games, You're not confined to a walled-in map. You can get shot from anywhere at any time from distances up to like 1,000 kilometers away. They could be a little pixel, a little speck, camping on a hill, laying down in the bushes. You'll never see them, and you'll be dead. And you'll be like, what just happened? Um, Getting shot by a silenced weapon, for example, downright panic-inducing. The sound design is so well done, like I've been saying, that you'll have no idea where you're getting hit from, nowhere to run and hide. You don't know what to do. And the jump scares in this game, as soon as you get hit by something out of the blue, it's like I've literally jumped out of my seat many, many times because I was just so surprised and caught off guard by someone just camping out. But this is the best part of the game, you know. Towards the end game, when you start to get down to the top 10, the electric field is moving in. I keep calling it the gas because I've been used to playing H1Z1 for a while, so you'll hear me call it gas, but it's really an electric field. But when it's moving in so quickly, this is like the best part of the game. When it's like 15 people left or top 10, matches are coming down to whoever's hiding behind a tree or whoever has the best positioning. This is like why I play this game. The adrenaline rush is unlike any other game I've ever played. And last, I think the final reason why I like this game so much is that it's hard. And this keeps me coming back personally. I have about 120 hours logged so far, but I only have 2 solo wins and like 4 squad wins. So it's crazy. Like it's very difficult to get a win in this game. A lot of things have to go your way, and of course there's a lot of luck involved as well. The skill ceiling, like I said, is extremely high, and it takes a lot of practice to get better and succeed at this game. Um, there's a certain randomness factor, which is what I mentioned before. The whole loot randomness, and of course the circles in the game not always following a set path. It sort of offsets that skill ceiling in a way. So games can be as slow or as fast as you want them to be depending on the decisions you make. And each round has a different story, and every round is played differently. So this game sort of makes you uncomfortable all the time, and you're forced to make snap decisions based on the situation you're in, which the human brain doesn't like. The human brain enjoys, you know, being comfortable, being in a situation where you can predict the outcome. But this always makes you do those snap decisions that put you at risk. But the cool thing is that when you die, it's very easy to see what you did wrong, and you get determined to fix that mistake. So for me, for example, I like to think of myself as a pretty decent player at this game. And there's only been probably 3, 4 deaths that I've ever thought were bullshit, honestly. Like, so many times I've died, and I've thought, well, that was my fault. Something I did wrong put me into a position where I got shot that I shouldn't have been in. It was me putting myself in an unsafe position. It was me not taking into account certain angles. It was me simply missing my shot, getting kill greedy, not making the right decision whether to hold my fire or shoot them on site. So it's really cool that a game can make you think, well, it's not the game that killed me. It was my own stupid decision. So I get determined to do better every single time, and that's what makes me, keep playing this game. The crazy thing is that you technically don't even have to get a kill to win in this game. So maybe you probably have to get that last kill at the very end, but PlayerUnknown, the creator of this game, said himself in an interview that you could get 30 kills, but if you don't get the win, you've done nothing. So this is what keeps me coming back. In the coming episodes, I'm going to be talking a bit more in depth about gameplay, including tips, strategies, and decision making. So like today, where I'm sharing some clips of me playing this game with my friends, some games much better than others, I want to share some of my gameplay tips and gameplay footage and explain some of my decision making along the way. So this game, to give you a little preview, I'm just about to land here. I think episode 2, what I'll do is cover this game because this one we actually won. And I want to show you some of the decisions we made along the way and what we did that either made us successful or not successful. I'm not here to just show off my clips and show off, look my amazing elite skills. I'm here to show you things that you can do to make your game better and to make your gameplay more fun, and maybe you'll learn something along the way to make better decisions. I want to see where this game goes, and I'm super excited about it. I'm really looking forward to the coming months. The development cycle seems to be really consistent so far, and with really great patches, with really great new content. And I'm very excited to see what the devs have for us. So thanks for sticking with me so far. I hope you enjoyed this introduction to the podcast. I hope I didn't ramble too much. So stay tuned in the coming weeks for more episodes. Thank you.